Welcome back, my 7 loyal fans. Today we're going to talk about something that I ordinarily would not have been talking about, and that's the Lindsay Clancy case. But the response is just so crazy, I feel like I've got to say something about it. It's like looking on social media, which, they say don't use social media as as a gauge to measure how people are really, thinking or behaving or whatever. They say social media is not real. That's so obviously untrue because everyone's on social media. It's like of course there are bots, but everyone's on social media putting their opinions and such out there. I mean, not everyone, but to say that like, oh, it's fake, it's overblown, that clearly isn't true. And we've seen like social media craziness seep into real life for basically my entire adult life at the very least. These photos of like moms with their babies that say like, "I get it, Lindsay," which what is that supposed to mean? I look at that, I was like, is this implying that you're on the verge of like repeating Lindsay's actions or what? Like, what does that really mean? And then you have people acting like postpartum depression is not real, which, you know, of course, obviously, I'm not a woman, but it makes sense that it would be real. I mean, your body's used a lot of nutrients to produce the child. You're undergoing a lot of hormonal changes. It makes sense that those factors could cause depression. That seems reasonable to me, but you know, it it just does seem like we're in this new chapter of the increasingly bizarre gender war. How unfun the internet has become. Like, it would be nice to sit here and argue with Chanty Banks, which, if you don't remember Chanty Banks, that was Big Red's real name. She's that feminist lady from like the 2014 era that was trying to read her list. Remember, number one, number one, number one. I was reading my list. That lady. I really liked her. I thought it was so funny when I was in like high school. Me and my friends like loved going number one. It was like a big meme with us, and it was just so different back then. Like it was like women were arguing about how like they get portrayed in video games as prizes. The hero beats the game and there's like a beautiful woman waiting for him. That was in movies and games they'd be upset about that, and then the men would be like, well, men are treated unfairly in civil court and we want that to change, and then they'd fight about it. And now we argue about child murderers and say that they're innocent. It's really like what a turn we've reached. It's kind of terrible. But anyway, I'll address the more feminist side first, I suppose. Lindsay Clancy is not the correct hero to rally behind for postpartum awareness, if that's your goal. If you want to talk like mental health for mothers or whatever, Lindsay Clancy is not the woman to make the hero of this. She's not a sympathetic person. People are, I think, innately repulsed by those who harm children. I mean, not everyone, obviously, but I think your average person is, making Lindsay Clancy kind of a bad hero for this. And when you're trying to raise awareness for something, optics is the most important part. And a child murderer is about as bad of optics as you can obtain. The other thing I'm seeing a lot of is mental health in this care in this country is not set up to help women, or the mental health care system is terrible to women, which implies it functions well for men, which is completely insane. So they're turning what could be a unifying issue into a divisive one for really no reason. The mental health system is quite female centered. Most people working in the field are women, from what I can find, and most of the people who are in therapy are women as well. So it's very much a system aimed at women. And I think there is a lot wrong with how we treat mental illness in this country. Clearly, the methods we have don't work, since obviously people are more mentally ill than ever, despite how large and well funded this field has become. But to say it prioritizes men is totally disconnected from reality. Like, this idea that, like, when you look at the way people treat mental illness, do you think they've got a lot of sympathy for mentally ill men and we're so much harsher on mentally ill women? Like, is that really what you see? We have a place for mentally ill men in this country. It's called prison. That's what happens to mentally ill men. And if it's less severe, you might get to hear sage advice like man up. But mental health is terrible for men. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's good for women either, but it is definitely terrible for men. So don't act like it's, you know, it's some aspect of patriarchy and it's working really well for men, because it truly isn't. That's so ridiculous. And no one has sympathy for mentally ill men. I mean, not even men have sympathy for mentally ill men. But like I said, there's no reason to make our failed mental health system a gender war issue. It really seems more people can't. It seems people can't help themselves, though. They just can't talk about problems without reframing them into gender war topics. And this has been a problem really my whole life. It's just like, really, no matter what we're talking about, there will be someone who wants to pivot it to the gender war. Like, they want to make it a gender war topic, no matter what it is. It's so crazy to me. Anyway, on the topic of motherhood, I'll say the world we live in is not set up for mothers. So, in a way, some of what these women are saying is not totally untrue. I get you're not gonna, nuanced opinions on the internet. I know I'm doing something stupid here, but if you are if you're a stay-at-home mom and your husband goes to work, you might be totally isolated. Like I had a friend like that. She moved away with her husband, had several children, and then just no one else around was doing that. So she just kind of didn't have anyone to really be friends with, didn't really have anyone to talk to. It's just kind of alone in her own world. And you can kind of be like that. Like some towns have very low birth rates, and there might not be anyone for you to form a social circle with that's like appropriate for you. And it's not like if you've got like several children, you kind of are locked into being friends with other people with several children. Not many like childless people want you to bring your like 3 kids to their house and have them run around your home, because their house isn't going to be set up for children. And it's like people without children don't really want to go hang out at your house, which is going to have become like a lair for children. Which is fine if you have children. It's great, and your families can hang out together, but it does. I think it does limit your social circle to people who have children for the most part. Okay, so you can be pretty isolated. So I think that's definitely, there is a reality to that. And if you do decide to work, or you have to work, if you're a mother who decides to work or has to work, then you will find yourself with truly no free time. A huge percent of your income is going to the racket known as daycare, and the upper management of your company is probably going to be annoyed that you decided to produce the next generation of worker, because no one in this country has any foresight at all. So I do think there is some point to like the women who are saying having a family right now is causing them a lot of grief. It does make sense. I mean, I don't really think, I think the way that we are set up, it's kind of like the whole reason the whole immigrant thing has happened. Like, people didn't, we made it so that having children is difficult. Our culture is not really set up for children, in my opinion, and for the reasons I listed already. And so our elite was like, oh, we're going to not look at any of those factors, and instead we'll just bring people from elsewhere. And now that really isn't working, they're like, maybe we can replace you with machines. But at no point does anyone with any power say like, let's look at these problems. Because they don't care. But anyway, so I'm empathetic to the mother struggling with modernity. But again, Lindsay Clancy is far from the correct hero for this cause. There was that woman who went and got burnt quite badly. She was like ran into a burning building. I'm sorry, I forget her name. How horrible is this? I know Lindsay Clancy's name, but I don't know this woman's name. But she ran into that burning building to rescue her children, and she did rescue them. But she's got pretty severe burns now, but is alive and all, and fine. But like, that'd be someone who could be a hero worth rallying around. Not Lindsay Clancy. It's just insane to me. But it's not about the cause for most people. For many of this case, it's just entertainment. Like the true crime types, they're just being amused. And for others, it's the latest outrage for it's the latest outlet for their rage-fueled gender tribalism. So don't think you could really reason with a lot of these people. It's a big mistake I see people making online, thinking like you can debate your way out of these things. No, you can't. And it's another thing, just kind of a little offshoot. It is 2026, and we have people who are saying Lindsay Clancy's innocent because she was born August 11th, which makes her a Leo. And Leos don't kill their cubs, is what they're saying. And that's an actual argument that's circulating online. And her husband is guilty because he was born June 15th, making him a Gemini and therefore a child killer. And these people who, are saying this, they fancy themselves to be progressives. And it's like they think that they're progressives, but then they've got a view that is so obscenely regressive. A middle-aged like a middle-ages peasant would think he was born June 15th, therefore he's guilty. Like a middle-aged peasant would find that insane. But we've got people, 2026, like so-called liberals who are saying things like this. It's very crazy to me. And I used to be kind of neutral on astrology. I know that, I mean, I am a Christian. I know a lot of other Christians have a problem with it. I never thought much about it. But sometimes it really goes in a place that's weird. Anyway, you got to keep in mind when you're talking like politics, especially when like gender war stuff is involved, that the person you're speaking with is likely framing their beliefs around like an ex-boyfriend they're mad at, or maybe on, I'll criticize the manosphere a little bit here. The manosphere, there are some within it that clearly are just mad at a specific woman. They're mad at an ex-wife or something, and their views are kind of being framed around it, so they don't really see reason either. And not everyone in the manosphere is like that, but there are some, and I'm sure you can probably think of one. And as conspiratorial as I am, I just can't accept the conspiracy narrative on this, on the Clancy case. There's footage of him elsewhere during the time the murders took place, and Lindsay Clancy herself is admitting to doing the crime. So to me, that's open and shut. And I know some people are like, well, you're like you're someone who's, kind of doesn't totally believe the narrative surrounding the Charlie Kirk case. And I'll explain why it's different. Tyler Robinson, the alleged shooter, is claiming innocence, and the mainstream narrative wants us to believe that a supposed gay furry electrician's assistant defeated UVU security, the Utah's police department, and I forgot the town's name, but that police department in Utah, and Turning Point's former Marine field security team by himself. He had no help. He just took down all these people by himself. There was no signs he was going to do this either. Just this sudden random event. And so that doesn't really make sense to me. But with the Clancy case, I feel the evidence is so obvious, it really points to what it is, and there really is no motive for the narrative to be fake. It's not like her husband is some powerful guy that those who can influence the judicial system would have a reason to let him off. And, it's just, I guess I do see kind of a problem in conspiracy world, which I'm very deep in, of people just like everything that we're told, it's opposite, which I don't think is necessarily true. Anyway, postpartum depression is real. And yes, the way we deal with mental health in this country is extremely backwards. But no, this is not the right case to fight these battles. And I think everyone knows that. But you can't underestimate just how bad faith and deranged people really are. And you see this with, I don't believe in the blank slate, but I also don't think most people are like evil connivers. I think most people are selfish and will do things that benefit themselves when they get the chance often. But I don't think most people are these like evil schemers that are, planning these diabolical things. I don't think most people are really that complicated. But I do think there are quite a few bad actors in this world. And if you are someone who is not a schemer, then because humans have this thing where they think other people are like them. Like someone who is a betrayer suspects others of being betrayers too. Like someone who will betray you is going to be very paranoid about you betraying them because they have the mind of a betrayer. Humans put their qualities on other people, other beings. That sounds mysterious. What I mean is like people will put like when people put human qualities on a dog, we do that because that's just something humans do. We think things are like us, and we do it on other people. And so if you're not a schemer, you're going to think, well, I wouldn't do that, therefore someone else wouldn't do that. But it's completely untrue. The internet is full of bad faith people, and it's full of people who are deranged. It's full of people who will say really anything to push whatever agenda they have. I really muddled that, but you see what I'm saying, I hope. I can explain it more in the comments if you don't. Anyway, there's a lot of that going on here, and you need to be aware of it. And I think a lot of this, it's like I said, like it is bad faith. These people are being bad faith. They have an agenda. They've got some other reason other than the truth to be saying what they're saying. And it's unfortunate because the gender relations in this country is something that really, in this country, I say, it's really in the whole world now, isn't it? It is something that bothers me because in real life, I find it pretty easy to get along with women, but on the internet, women really do a bad showing. And of course, I mean, men do a bad showing on the internet too. You've got people like Andrew Tate that just say things that are very off-putting to women. But you've got a lot of guys like that on the internet that make us look bad, and a lot of women who make us look bad. And these people, like I mentioned, that are up to something. They're up to something. Making everyone, pushing these insane narratives for who knows what reason. And like I said, they might just be upset with someone in their personal life, so they get on the internet and they want to say Lindsay Clancy's innocent because it makes them feel good. They want to believe the husband is guilty because he reminds them of someone that they don't like. It's just, I don't know. It just stinks. But this is the world we live in. So I don't think I'll be talking about this case again, but I just want to cover it a little bit. And please use discernment when you're on the internet, okay? Use discernment. In your real life, too, remember, people are not like you. If you're not an evil person, it doesn't mean other people aren't evil. And, I get this, it's like when I try to explain things to my parents who are not from the internet age. My parents had me when they were quite a bit older than is normal. And when I try to explain some things to them, they'll often not believe me at first, be like, there's no way that happened. There's no way someone would do that. They're like, oh, they did. But they have trouble believing it because my parents would never like run a scam on anyone. So when there's like some sort of scam that's occurred I'm telling them about, they just kind of don't believe it, or they're like, they wouldn't lie about this. Or like a politician, they'll say like, a politician wouldn't have lied about this. They wouldn't have, who would do such a thing? Because they would never do that, so they have trouble believing other people would. But I'm getting sidetracked from the point. Anyway, give me a like, give me a subscribe, a comment, please. I'd love a comment. I'm begging for a comment. On my hands and knees begging for a comment, really. Because I want to engage with these communities more and, want to get a little community going here. So hopefully we can do that. Anyway, I'll see you next time. And next time I have a more put together video. I just kind of churned this one out.